Hey, Jess.
Yes.
We're on less than 4 hours of sleep. We just consumed some really subpar pumpkin spice lattes, and it's the spooky season. Are you ready?
You bet your bats.
Wolfman, play us in.
And now we're going to play an old golden goodie from way back.
Welcome to Eat A Fix, a podcast about a couple hyperfixating on obscure pop culture. I'm your co-host, Paul Unger.
And I'm your co-host, Jess Unger.
Yay! And it is both the spooky month and ADHD Awareness month, which I didn't remember until a few days into it, which is par for the course.
Oddly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really great that the community is pretty forgiving about that.
I would assume so.
Because like most of the stuff rolling in was a couple days late, so everybody needs to just set reminders, a lot of them, and give them to other people. Every time I have something important, I tell Jess about it, and she sets the reminder so she can remind me later, because when that reminder pops up on my phone, 90% of the time, my muscle memory is just to dismiss.
So I remind you about the reminders, and then typically things get done.
Yes, typically.
Typically.
But with that being said,
Yes.
when it comes to Halloween, when I was much younger, I required a super soft Halloween. I was terrified of anything that was remotely scary.
Yep.
When I was being annoying, and I'm the youngest child, so that is ingrained into my DNA, my siblings would get me to run away in tears by humming the X-Files theme, which was enough to just scare the heck out of me.
I was very similar. I was the type of kid who couldn't listen to the old school Unsolved Mysteries theme, like the one hosted by Richard Stack. I could not. I would yell at my parents to turn that off. I absolutely understand.
Oh, yes. So, when I was younger, I needed Hocus Pocus. And there was all the Disney, like, Tower of Terror and, like, adjacent stuff that you'd find on the Family Channel and YTV with their Halloween specials. Mm-hmm. That was the stuff that I consumed. While everyone else was actually watching Halloween, I stuck to my family-friendly specials. Until something clicked later in life, and I'm like, what if we watched all the horror movies all the time? And that was just something I liked doing.
See, and I still just can't get behind that. I have to do so much mental prep and research. And what are the jump scares like in this? And what's the rating? What's the gore factor? Because I can't do gore. Jump scares haunt my dreams for ages, and I'm a wiener baby with that stuff, and I never could. Like, I had to do so much mental prep and research on like the special effects behind The Exorcist, and I had to like read books and what have you just to prepare myself physically and mentally to watch the movie, because I was so fascinated with it and I was so determined. And I watched it, and it still gave me nightmares for like a month. So.
And I remember that we had watched Insidious, and I tried introducing this to Jess with the whole idea of it is not that scary. It had practical effects there. There was some jump scares, but it didn't seem much as far as like jumping out just for the heck of it. It seemed to be like a good entry point to kind of ease you back into that. And you bailed out of the movie before the end, not because you were scared of it, but there was one of the scares that you were like, this is dumb, and you just checked out of the movie. But you had nightmares about that later that night.
No, I did, and that's frustrating as well, because I don't like being that much of a scaredy cat. As a 35-year-old human being, I feel like you should be able to tolerate some level of fear, and the fact that I could watch something, think it's stupid, and it still haunted my dreams was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm a baby, and that's fine, I guess.
So my question for you is, when you were growing up, What was your favorite Halloween movie or special?
That's tough. I can't recall having one. Those came later.
Really? Like you weren't... I know you right now like watching The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Yeah, that's like a Thanksgiving thing. It's The Great Pumpkin. It's not like, I mean, who doesn't enjoy I Gotta Rock in terms of specials? Mind you, I have a weakness for Peanuts. That's just me. But, like, I didn't grow up, I didn't watch Hocus Pocus until you and I got together.
Really?
That was the first time I had ever seen it. I didn't watch Halloween Town until this year, actually a few days ago. Unpopular opinion, please don't come at me. I didn't enjoy it all that much, but beyond that, I didn't really have any because I hated all things scary. So I didn't watch anything like that.
See, where Hocus Pocus was a favorite of mine, I remember the Tower of Terror Disney TV movie that I liked.
Okay.
And it's based off of the ride that was at MGM Studios. And I remember at the time I got a chance to go to Disney World and see it. And I got excited, even though at that point I was still thinking I was a wimp and didn't like roller coasters. I quickly found out later on that day that, like, I was afraid of going on them, not the actual ride. So once I was on them, I had a great time. But the notion of getting on them at that point was terrifying. But I had like this like fan geeking out moment of like seeing it and going like, oh my god, it's like from the movies.
Oh my gosh. That's adorable.
Because they even had like the little bellhop that was dressed the same way from the movie and then in the front there, and that was the attendant going in. Anyways, so that was I still can't find that. I figured it would be on Disney Plus, but it's not on there.
Oh, wow.
And I remember watching Hocus Pocus and being afraid of Billy the zombie.
Okay.
Just because he's
a little creepy looking.
Yeah, he's a little grotesque about the whole like sewn up mouth. That was kind of creepy. But nowadays, that's my jam. There's supposed to be a sequel. I'm actually excited about that.
Same here. Oh my goodness. I've seen Witches of Eastwick more than once, which I mean, you could categorize that as being a Halloween movie, I guess. Couldn't do Practical Magic. I couldn't.
No.
I had to stop when they were going to put the thing in the guy's eyes. I couldn't do that. Sleepy Hollow we were talking about.
Yeah, that's not quite
no
a PG kids.
No, and no. But I also don't remember watching the Ichabod and Mr.
Toad,
that's the thing.
Yeah, that movie it has some cool like animation moments in it, but man, is that drawn out.
It is.
I tried watching that with our daughter, I think, last Halloween.
No, before that.
Oh, maybe. And she was falling asleep on the couch, and I'm sitting there like, I am so bored right now.
And we were 45 minutes in and we hadn't even seen Ichabod yet?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what is this business with Mr. Toad? Get to the good part. Ugh.
So on that note, what we want to talk about today is the Hilarious House of Frightenstein. Which is something I found later in life. I had seen little reruns and syndications of it on YTV and the Sci-Fi Channel at varying times. So when you brought this up, it unlocked those memories of seeing these characters kicking around. Because every so often there'd be some new character that shows up and I'm like, oh, I know who this is. But this was a lot of fun to revisit, and I didn't realize how much fun this was.
See, and this was a suggestion given to me by, I don't know if he's a listener. Anyway, a friend, and who is super into this, and this was something for me. My mom used to quote this a lot, and I grew up with the catchphrases, but I had never seen any of it until, for a small period of my life, we lived with my grandparents. My grandparents had, I believe it was on YTV at the time, and would run this. And my mom saw it and freaked out, and I went, oh, this is neat. Like, I've heard about this for a long time, and I got hooked. And then I was reminded of it by the friend who suggested we do this for the podcast, and I had to drag you down with me.
Oh yeah, this has been a fun rabbit hole to go through and just to learn more about, and we'll get more into the history of it afterwards. But it was filmed back in 1971.
Yep.
They shot 130 episodes over a summer, just basically by having the same actors show up as these different characters for one solid day and just doing these different segments non-stop.
In that one character.
Yeah. And I guess as the show went on, they stopped having a script and just let the people improvise more and more till it was just bare bones suggestion of, this is what you should do in this scene. The rest of it is up to you. And, oh man, it does not disappoint.
I guess we should elaborate a little bit more. The main actor in this was Billy Van, and he was an amazing comedian of Sonny and Cher fame before. And then he pitched this and basically does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 characters.
He does the majority of them.
And it's insane.
So the basic plot of the show is Count Frightenstein has been exiled with Igor out of Transylvania because he could not revive Brucey, the Frankenstein
monster.
Yeah, Frankenstein monster creature.
Yeah.
And each episode, him and Igor are trying to revive Brucey while these other characters go on and tell stories or teach us about animals or science or what have you.
Yeah.
And it is still just a load of fun.
So Billy Van himself plays, like we said, 10 out of the 19 characters. His 10 were Buona Clyde Batty,
Ooga booga.
the Count,
Why doesn't Vincent Price ever introduce me?
the Wolfman,
Ba-ba-doo-big-a-dee-ga-boom-ba.
Dr. Pet Vet,
Has your pet been fed today?
the Librarian,
I've horrified you. I know it, I can tell.
the Oracle,
I am the Oracle. I am in great pain because my fingernails are sticking into the palm of my hand.
the Guru,
It is written that a fool and his hair are soon parted, usually in the middle.
Griselda, the Singing Soldier,
I'm calling you.
and the Gorilla.
And then you had Vincent Price as the narrator, who both introduced different segments as well as the intro and outro. And we love Vincent Price in this house.
Oh my gosh, maybe next year we'll do...
More Vincent Price movies and
Yeah, because that's a good little round. But yes, beyond that, Fishka Rais? Not sure how to pronounce that. He played Igor.
If everybody would pay the rent, maybe I could get my 800 years back pay and a new raincoat.
Unfortunately, the poor man died 3 years after this was over. And then there was the professor.
I'm Julius Sumner Miller, professor of physics in this strange, uncommon place. And here we do strange things with nature, and nature does strange things with us.
And then Mitch Markowitz, he played the mosquito. And the super hippie,
Shazam! Whoops, wrong show.
which I thought Billy Van did the mosquito. That's interesting. And then Guy Big did the mini count.
This show could be a lot worse.
And we forgot to list it here, but maybe we'll put it in the description. There was also the puppets Gronk, Grammer's Slammer Bammer, and Harvey Wallbanger. And then the most important character in the whole entire show, Brucey himself. So with this being not necessarily your first time, but your first sit down and actually take in what you're looking at,
yeah.
how did you find it? What was your experience?
It brought me back to Saturday morning cartoons and like those Saturday morning shows that you would watch.
Yeah.
That would have like arts and crafts. Like in Canada, we had Mr. Dress Up. we had Camp Caribou, and this fit right in that vein of things.
Okay.
And it just made me feel warm and fuzzy, and it was fun. And Billy Van is bringing some big eccentric energy throughout all of this. And I just love it because he is wearing increasingly more over-the-top prosthetics during this performance.
Yep.
From Griselda to Bwana to the Wolfman, they are just over the top. And it's hard to tell that it's the same person in each one. And as we watched through it, you could see how more of it was improvised.
Yeah.
And man, he's good. Like, he is very good at what he does. I'm surprised that he wasn't in more, because his career for his quality of comedy just do not line up.
No.
You would have expected more of like a Robin Williams trajectory for him.
Billy passed away pretty young. Like, he passed away in 2003.
That's really unfortunate, because now they're planning a reboot of this series that's going to be on HBO or Crave or whatever platform, depending on the country that recycles all this content. And there's also audio books or podcasts or shows that you can check out. They did like a limited series of. But it's nice to see that this show's still attracting attention and is still being viewed and still being appreciated.
I think it needs to come back to the younger generation, because I think there's something in it for them as well. It was wholesome content. It was educational content, a lot of it. And quite honestly, I just think, I don't know. I like nostalgic reboots. That's all. That's just me. I find comfort in them. And this is one of them.
This was really nice to go back, watch through, and actually, I don't know, I feel like as a kid, I maybe dismissed it, because there's that certain era that was being put on, and this would have been like me with Pokemon and Digimon and Metabots and Beyblades and the 4Kids version of One Piece that I really wish I could just erase. Dubs used to be bad, guys. They're really bad.
Yeah, the dubbed Sailor Moon.
Oh, but somehow this came out later and was worse.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I don't think I gave this the appreciation it deserved when I saw it. In the brief bits I saw and actually paid attention to, I enjoyed it, but not to the point where I would have actually sought it out. Now when I look at this, I'm like, can we find this in a box set?
Yes.
Can we find somewhere that we can watch it all? Which is apparently Crave, but that between that and Lower Decks, that's like the only two things that we watch on there. Because we finished all of Letterkenny and this new season's still a little whiles out.
Yes.
So, once we're done with all that, that's a big subscription.
It is. It is. But now that you've come back to it, now that you've watched it as an adult human man, who is your favorite character?
The Librarian. The Librarian is my absolute favorite character, because his whole shtick is he tells non-spooky stories like they are spooky stories.
Yep.
Trying to act like you're scared as you're reading it, finishing it with his catchphrase, "Did I get you?" And I love it. But like all the segments in there are great. The Wolfman is one where maybe it like, I like it when he's doing his DJ setup. The whole psychedelic playing his axe in front of a green screen, I could maybe do without. Like, the music's pretty good. It's one of those segments where those are the ones I'm like, okay, so we're just playing music that I'm familiar with. Watching someone chaotically dance for the, I'm guessing the 20th time that day to different type of music.
See, and that's one of my favorite things. Is the segment where he and Igor get in front of the green screen with the psychedelic colors flashing, and you can see Igor's eye, letter I on him, as him and Wolfman are dancing, and the weird random stuff Wolfman comes out with. Like at one point he came out with like a tuba to dance. It was pretty great. That's one of my favorite things ever. That and Vincent Price's little poems introducing the next skit. They get me. Oh my goodness, they get me.
I am largely convinced that Vincent Price didn't have a script. They just turned on the camera and that was him naturally. He speaks in riddles and rhymes and like quotes Edgar Allan Poe just off the top of his head. That is how I envision Vincent Price.
That's fair. Although I do think also they gave him a box of props in front of him and he picked those weird, gnarly, elongated rubber hands to do a lot of them with. They just looked so ridiculous. It's so funny to see him in a more comedic, quote-unquote, spooky role as opposed to an actual spooky role. It was fascinating.
Yeah, I can't really say that there are some segments that have not aged the best, and some depictions that are a little dated.
Yes.
Now, that being said, it's still a pretty funny show.
Yes.
So, if you can, and it's available to you, we do suggest that you do go seek out The Hilarious House of Frightenstein. Now, something we didn't talk about at the beginning.
Yes.
Hey, Jess.
What?
What have you been fixated on?
Oh, gosh. Research. Right now, I am consuming every single Exorcist documentary, video, essay, review I can get my hands on right now.
Yeah, this has actually been a change of pace because my, I guess, idle media consumption is watching video essays.
Yeah.
Usually on stuff I haven't even watched or am not intending to watch. I just like analysis of media. It speaks to me.
Yeah.
But seeing you doing this has been incredibly endearing. I just watch this and go like, aw, my little nerd. I love it.
Little. Yes, I am 5'3". A little less than that.
And that's going to be coming up in our next episode when we're going to be tackling
The Exorcist trilogy? Briefly.
But mostly Legion.
Mostly Legion. Or Exorcist 3, if you're not a purist.
And I know for myself, I had to put one of my fixations down. And properly, it's gone. It's over with. I had been playing Crystal Dynamics' The Avengers game.
Yes.
And I had really been enjoying that. And when it came to Xbox Game Pass, I was so psyched to play it. Because it follows Camilla Khan. And she's one of my favorite new additions to the Marvel Universe as a fan who becomes a superhero. So she both idolizes superheroes, but she's also becoming a superhero.
Okay.
It's really interesting. They're telling some really good stories with her. So when there was a game that's going to be focused on her, I was really excited. But this game seemed to be very anti-ADHD.
Oh?
Because with larger games that have a multiplayer setup, they now have these hub worlds that you occupy and that you can go around and do stuff like buy new gear and change outfits and do all this.
Yeah.
That's kind of par for the course. Except this game requires you to retread through old levels that you've already done with different stories attached to them.
Okay.
Then you have to go around this hub world where your mobility is slowed down.
Ew.
And you have to run back and forth. There's no quick travel.
Ew.
And then you need to do this with multiple characters because there's gear for each character that's hidden throughout the, you're on a shield helicarrier.
Ew.
So it got to a point where I was playing through to try and get the story. And I was getting to the point where I thought, I have hit the climax of the story. We are getting down to the final fight. And it had this grindy mission that popped up instead of the main battle, where it went, okay, before we can get to the main battle, we need to get everybody new suits. So go and do these 8 different missions in areas you've already played through with different characters.
That's infuriating.
And I just looked at this. I'd been really just wanting to get through the story. And I looked at it. I exited out. I uninstalled the game. And I just went on YouTube and watched the rest of the cinematics.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
I have never put down a game so viscerally. There's been a few times when I've just lost interest in it. But a game to make me just stop mid-playing and uninstall it, that is not common. Normally I obsess on it until it's either completed or it just dies off. This was, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Okay. Because the last time I recall you doing something similar, not this particular situation, but similar, was when you were playing MGS5, that's Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, and you refused to fully complete the game because you didn't want to know what happened with Quiet.
It's tough, guys. Metal Gear already hurt me enough. I've already felt enough emotions, and I just want Venom Snake and Quiet to have a happy life together, and that is how I choose to envision the rest of the game. And no one can tell me differently.
Except everyone on YouTube who filmed the ending.
I don't need this from you.
I went back and watched it.
Yeah.
Because I needed to know. And then I sobbed and regretted it.
Yeah.
So.
You know, just on a side note, Kojima recently came out and said he didn't know that he was going to be writing a new game every time. Like, it was always a surprise that he did Metal Gear, and then he got a Metal Gear 2, and then they brought him back for Metal Gear Solid, and then Metal Gear Solid 2. It was always a surprise to him, and he didn't really think there was going to be a sequel to it. And the fact that the man just haphazardly, chaotically writing and designing these janky stories has elicited so much emotion from me over the years is frustrating. But I will continue to play everything that the man puts out when I finally get the PS4, PS5, playing Death Stranding, regardless of how much walking is involved. I know it's going to hurt me in the feels, but I'll enjoy every moment of it.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So that is going to do it for this week's episode. Check out The Hilarious House of Frightenstein, if you can. And shoot us a message. Tell us what your favorite Halloween special is.
Or what your favorite Halloween tradition is. Or even the best costume you think you ever wore to date.
We want to see it.
Absolutely, we want to see it.
All our contact info is in the podcast description. So be sure to tune in next week when we talk about the Exorcist series. But until then...
like what you like, no matter what the mean kids say.
Ooh, spooky noises.
The castle lights are growing dim. There's no one left but me and him. When next we meet in Frankenstone, don't come alone.
Big thank you to Ethel and the Androids for the use of their song Used to Know You for the intro and the outro. You can find the link to their SoundCloud in the show description, as well as all our links to our social media. And thanks for tuning in and listening to our podcast. If you like the show, be sure to review and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice.